Today's episode of This Week in Startups is brought to you by Squarespace, an all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create a professional website and now an online store. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase on new accounts, go to squarespace.com and use the offer code TWiST2. And by Walker Corporate Law, a boutique law firm specializing in the representation of entrepreneurs. Visit them at walkercorporatelaw.com. And by Amazon Web Services. It's easy to get started with AWS Activate, a new global program for startups with AWS credits, training, developer support, a startup community forum, and more. Visit aws.amazon.com/activate.
Hey everybody, it's Jason Calacanis, and this is This Week in Startups, the program where we meet founders, entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, people who are trying to make great products to change the world and make it better and more efficient and just generally awesome. One of my favorite products of last year is HipChat, and I have one of the co-founders on the program today. It has transformed our organization, Inside.com, and This Week in Startups and Launch, and I'm going to tell you all about it today with the founder, Peter. Stick with us.
That's what it's all about, man. They said money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Hey everybody, it's Jason Calacanis. This is This Week in Startups, and of course, I am here in San Francisco, in the Central Market neighborhood, also known as like the neighborhood that's kind of turning over and becoming like the cool like Twitter area. And we have a great studio here at WeWork, and WeWork Golden Gate. That's the version of WeWork. They have dozens and dozens of locations for WeWork, and I use the one in New York as well when I'm in New York City. Of course, they have Los Angeles as well. And you can go to WeWork.com to find out all about it. And I thank WeWork for giving us this great studio to work out of every time I come up here. Incredibly generous of you guys. And a great team. And it's like $500 or $600 a desk. So all the startups I invest in, I tell them, hey, just go to WeWork, and then when you hit like 10, 11, 12 desks, of course you can look for your own space if you want to have, that culture going. But anyway, you get the idea. Launch Festival, oh my God, it's around the corner. February 24th, 25th, and 26th here in San Francisco. 8,000 people coming. And, I've had incredible companies launch at my event over the last 6 years. This will be year 7. Dropbox, Mint, Yammer, Fitbit, Room 77, Space Monkey, Brilliant.org. Tons of great companies. AdStage have launched, and your company can launch as well. If you're interested in launching your company there, go ahead and go to the website, festival.launch.co. We've picked 15 of the 40, so get in there quick and get a ticket. And tickets start at just $49, very open event, and you can go all the way up to $1,000 or $5,000 super VIP ticket and all this kind of stuff. All right, listen, there's a couple different ways we pick guests for the show. One of the ways is the audience demands to have the person on the program. Like, hey, we have to get this person on the program because we all think they're super groovy. The second is producer Gina finds somebody who she thinks the audience would find groovy and I would find groovy. And the third is like, hey, I run into a person or a product in the world and I say, hey, get me that person who made this. And today we have that third category. And I'll tell you how we don't get people in the program. PR pitches. Like people that pitch, like if you're pitching yourself to be on the show, that's a really bad idea. Don't do that. You'll immediately get sent to like the delete folder. There's no offense to PR people, but the people who are being pitched by PR people are generally the people you don't want to have on the program because they need to hire a PR person to be, you get the idea. This is an audience-driven show. So if the audience wants it or the host wants it, then that's probably what's going to happen. Anyway, not to slag on PR people. I know they work really hard. What a disaster the PR business is, huh? It's crazy. I'm looking at the HipChat's PR person right now. So, yeah, it's a really difficult business. I know. Luckily, I have a good client. Anyway, Peter Curley is here, and he is the co-founder, I believe, of HipChat, which is an incredibly simple service that is incredibly transformative. Tell me, why did you create HipChat, and where did this company come from?
Sure. So it was actually, I guess it was 2008. The other two founders, Garrett Heaton and Chris Rivers, and I were working at Plaxo.
Plaxo, the contact startup by Sean Parker.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
You got classic Sean Parker time.
Well, no, he had left right
he had left?
right before we
Sequoia
got there.
Company.
Yep.
Lots of drama there.
Yep. Well, luckily, I'm only left with the stories. I didn't get to see it firsthand. But
so you're at
still good stuff
Plaxo.
anyway. So we're at Plaxo. And
Explain to people what Plaxo was, because it is worth taking a pause and just meditating on what Sean Parker did before Facebook and became famous.
Sure. So Plaxo was the smart address book this is pre-social networking, all of this kind of stuff. And I think the original idea was to connect you with people you know and all of that kind of stuff. But I think one of the problems was they started in 2001. And a lot of the people you actually knew and wanted contact info for either didn't have computers yet, the Wi-Fi, internet, all of that stuff wasn't even close to where it is now. And so they went, instead of going down the social direction, they went down the data sync route. And that's a really hard data sync. I don't actually even think it's possible because my definition of perfect sync is it does what the user thinks should happen. And it almost never, even if it technically worked, it doesn't meet the user's expectations.
I mean, this was before the iPhone. It was like to take your address book from your email client, Outlook, and sync it with some email contact database that you had in an Excel document or wherever you kept it.
Right. And so that was, and then I think after, there was some sort of incident with Sean leaving Plaxo.
Yeah.
And then I think he saw what Mark was doing with Facebook and said, this is the correct way to do what my original vision was, or this kid's onto something.
Plaxo really gets credit even before Facebook for being viral.
Right. Well, that's the thing. If you get a lot of, I always say that because there was a lot of backlash from all of that, right?
It was actually.
And so, but I think one of the things that's interesting is all the stuff that they did is any site now, their sign-up flow, it's the exact same. They were just the first ones to do it. And so I think at one point, if you search for Plaxo, the number one result, the first result other than the actual homepage was a Walt Mossberg piece about how terrible Plaxo was.
Right.
And so, and it was just, people trying to spread the viral aspect and get their friends' contact info. And you get some smart engineers making some smart decisions to grow the product, but it ended up violating people's social
norms, expectations, whatever. Yeah. I mean, basically the way Plaxo worked back then was you said, update your contact info for me. And it emailed everybody and put the onus on them to update their info to join the network. But the problem was everybody loved it and it spread so virally that you would get 20 a day.
Right.
And it didn't, back then, nobody ever thought like, hey, I wonder if there's people on this system getting 25 a day. We should dedupe it and send one notice a day of here's your latest.
Right.
But it is the social flow of Path or Twitter or anything.
Any of those you sign up, invite all your friends. They, pre-check every single box so you can on purpose or purposefully or accidentally send.
Sean Parker doesn't get enough credit. He was so ahead.
You don't think he gets enough credit?
I guess in a way he gets too much for the wrong thing, which is being, a billionaire or just being, living a very vivacious life, let's say.
I think his...
But his true genius, I mean, he really did get to things early. Like he could spot that trend, like Napster peer-to-peer, virality in Plaxo, Social Graph and Facebook.
No doubt.
And then Spotify, he just gets there early. Yep. So you're there. You guys are working on Plaxo.
Yeah, so we're working on Plaxo, and we're working on their new calendar. We had actually originally started a company called HipCal while we were in college, and then
HipCal?
HipCal calendar.
Yeah. Oh, got it.
I don't actually even think it's up now anymore. This is like a year before Google Calendar, but we were acquired by Plaxo, and so we were all moved from upstate New York. We were all at Rensselaer Polytechnic outside of Albany, and we all moved out here and went to work for Plaxo. So there were 5 of us originally. And then, so we were at Plaxo, and I think they had 50, 60 employees at the time. And basically how it worked is when you joined, you created a new AIM screen name. So I was Plaxo Pete.
Oh, God,
Garrett
I remember
was
those
Plaxo
days.
Garrett.
Right.
And so basically, whenever anyone new joined the company, once you get to 50, 60 people, there's someone joining or
There's
leaving
3 Jasons.
every 2 weeks. Yeah, all of that stuff.
And nobody has control over the...
There's no control.
Yeah.
Everyone's on, either the real client or Pigeon or Adium or all of that kind of thing. But the worst is...
what was it, Trillion? Or
Trillion.
Trillion?
Yep. A lot of people were on
it's like
that.
a memory lane show.
Yeah, and so this is how bad. This is when our idea for HipChat sort of came from. But basically, when someone new joined the company, you had to get their screen name somehow, and then when they leave, do you remove them off your list? So eventually,
they would just keep going back and poisoning the previous employees.
Yeah, so you just have this list that was like and then instead of group chat on AIM, it was copying and pasting one message from one person to another and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I think there had been a few failed attempts to get people on IRC, but it's also really technical. So
Internet Relay Chat,
right?
The original chat system of the internet,
right? And we had been using that for years growing up, so we knew how valuable the group chat aspect was. And a lot of the sort of consumer products around weren't really up to snuff for a company.
So what did you do? You built it inside of Plaxo, or you built a skunkworks?
Well, so that was sort of like the first, that was when we identified the problem. And then Plaxo got acquired by Comcast in 2008, I think.
Yeah.
And so and I'm like, this is going to be awesome. We're going to be able to see what a company with a lot of money, I bet they have an awesome solution for this.
Yeah.
They were using AIM.
No.
And I'm like, all right, that's it. We quit. Like, it's like, let's go solve
Let's go fix this.
Let's go solve this problem. And a lot of the people, rightfully so, they're like, I don't think the world needs another instant messaging client. Like, surely the problem is solved, or there are enough people doing it at least that there doesn't need to be another one.
There is an expectation amongst people. In a way, it's like a cynical thing that, like, well, certainly this problem's been solved, and we've done the best we can.
Do you know how many smart people are out there? Sure,
yeah, there's smart people. This must have been solved. And it's
Yeah.
like, no, I mean, Uber didn't exist 5 years ago, and now it's...
But you would have said cab solved that.
Yeah,
Solved that
no,
problem,
the cab
right?
dispatch has already solved the problem, and
Right.
now the cab drivers are making twice as much money.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
And so that was the, and then engineers would say, we already have IRC and we use that, and then but the file sharing sucks and all these other problems you have with IRC. And it turns out when we started asking other companies, they were all in the same state. They got Google Apps with, or they got GChat with Google Apps for your domain for free. Like it came with it.
Right.
And then
Get what you pay for.
They were using Skype for video calls.
Correct.
And then like BizDev guys are using, because a lot of their stuff's external, not
right.
They're
calling
internal.
clients on it, right?
And then engineers were using IRC. And so basically everyone spread. That's not the best cross-functional communication
And
experience.
there's no domain, there's no namespace. Like, there's nobody managing who's on there.
And so we knew, I had an internship at IBM when I was in college, and their intranet is amazing. It's one of the things that, as a 1 million person company, keeping it all connected with minimal travel is one of the more amazing things that they've done. And they had Lotus Same Time, which is their instant messaging thing, and it has everyone's real names, not screen names. And I'm like, this is actually really cool, and it's really easy to see where everyone is.
What is that, part of Lotus Notes, kind of?
Yeah. So basically, I know someone solved it on the high end, right? But if you go check that out on their site, it's like contact a salesperson, and they're probably not going to want to talk to you unless you're a CTO.
Yeah, $50 a seat per month.
Right. And so I'm like, there has to be something that's as easy to sign up for as a consumer service, but has not overboard security and administration stuff, but at least a somewhat private network for companies. And so that was basically where the idea came from.
All right, when we get back from commercial break, I want to talk about what the reaction was to the product and the usage and the growth of it, because it's grown quite nicely over the years when we get back from this message. And
what a great interview we're having right now. Pete from HipChat makes a great product. And speaking of a great product, Squarespace. I use it. I've been using it for years. They just had their 10th anniversary, New York-based company in Silicon Alley, and they are crushing it. They make beautiful websites. And if you want to make a beautiful website, you go to Squarespace, you sign up, and it's super easy. Anybody can do it. They added commerce and calendars and mobile. It's just a beautiful, beautiful, elegant experience. And if you want to have a beautiful experience, wow, look at this. They have this new blog. Look how beautiful their blog experience is. And this is a beautiful website for the Bedford Foundation. And these are websites that are built super easy by consumers, just by regular rank and file people, not like some crazy, developers just using the templates. You can make something gorgeous. And they just had this awesome Super Bowl ad, very creative, a lot of fun. I mean, it's just great for me to see a partner like Anthony from Squarespace have a great outcome with his company, and they're constantly improving it. I can tell you this because we use the product here, and it just every year gets better. Every year, every quarter, they launch new features. No credit card is required. They're that confident that you're going to love the service. It starts at only $8 a month. Squarespace is everything you need to create an exceptional website. That's right, everything you need to create an exceptional website. And just how cool was that they were on the Super Bowl? And it was a great, funny ad. Congratulations to my friends over there. I know they've worked really hard to just make a beautiful product. And it's great to see them rewarded with this great moment in time when they do an awesome ad in the Super Bowl. Okay, so great job to all my friends at Squarespace. Congratulations on 10 years, 10 great years, and the Super Bowl ad. Everybody make sure that you use the trial code TWiST2, TWiST and the number 2, This Week in Startups 2. Let's get back to this amazing episode.
all right, thanks to our sponsor. And For those of you just joining us, you're listening to This Week in Startups, a twice-weekly program. Used to be thrice weekly, but I was just getting exhausted. On this program, we interview great founders, venture capitalists, people who are building businesses, and today is no different. I have Peter Curley with me of HipChat. You can go check out hipchat.com. It's a product I use literally as much as email, HipChat, browser. It's probably like email, HipChat, and browser equals something like that. Somewhere in that zone.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's way up there in terms of like my product usage. So you start getting this into organizations, and what is the reaction?
Well, so
did you go to an accelerator, or just raise money, or just built it?
We were just doing it bootstrap.
Bootstrap, yeah.
And that's what we had done our first.
What year is this now? When
this
you
is
built
2009.
Okay.
Around June, I think.
Yeah.
And so we had built. It took us like 6 months to build stuff from scratch up to the prototype ready to release. And our only goal, and I think this is sort of an important thing for all startups, like what's that first metric that you're either failing or succeeding? Because the quicker you have one of those, you can either change paths or whatever.
It was a minimum viable product before minimum viable product existed.
Yeah,
you were thinking about this.
Luckily we thought of that. And it was
key metric.
It was basically to make something that Plaxo would actually pay for, because we were building it specifically for this size organization. That they wouldn't buy because we used to work there or our friends were using it, like Pity Party using our software, and they did, and it wasn't everyone loved it, and we had people from the company asking to join us or doing all, and so we're like, well, that's a pretty amazing sign. Right. So then we released it on I think it was basically January of 2010. It was on TechCrunch, and we put it in private beta for like a few weeks, and then we had someone start paying even before their 30-day trial was up, that were not Plaxo. And we're like, well, screw that. Let's just release it, because obviously that means if someone actually, the act of taking out a credit card and doing the manual, it means
another
a lot.
test.
It means a lot, right?
Right. You have proven that at least one person is willing to pay for this, who is not a previous friend of yours.
Right. And so that was sort of the first sort of good signs that we had going, but. This is one of the interesting things, especially about enterprise businesses, which makes them really hard, is it takes a lot of time. And almost all of our growth was viral, either people seeing someone else use it or all of that thing, because no one's searching for business instant messaging. Or like I went through all the SEO Moz data, no one was searching for it. Yeah. So it's not a problem.
It's a product they don't know they need.
Exactly. And it's like
maybe IRC hosting.
We were totally in the TiVo dilemma of you can't live without it. But it's really hard to convince people that they need it in the first place, right?
So how do you, as an entrepreneur, when people don't know they need it, actually get it in front of them so they can see how much they've been missing something they don't know they need?
That's a really good question.
I mean,
actually, it was mostly just viral. Like other people. We finally found this solution to the people that really identified that problem.
Right.
They did a lot of the spreading for us, and we try to. I like to think that we make products that are better than they need to be. So we put in a lot of the fun emoticons and meme stuff and all of that stuff that people, it made it. Strangely, those were some of the better, the not the security aspects of the product, but the fun, this is just way better than even the normal IM stuff. We had people talking to us, and we actually considered this for a bit, pivoting even to consumer IM, because people were enjoying it much more than.
You thought about going consumer.
Yeah.
And you stopped yourself.
Well, that's one of the things when we started, we didn't know if it was going to be for like school groups going to use it. Are people going to use it with their families? Like it seems obvious now looking back, but at the same time, and then so we made the call to stick to just businesses because we knew that they had this problem and they pay you money. Right. No one's family is going to pay you money to have a group chat, right? So it's like, well.
Yeah, you're going to be in the message me boat or one of these.
As a bootstrap company, it was nice to have, especially being in the consumer space, where the metrics were page views, activity, all of these kind of vague metrics that don't actually mean anything. It was nice to have one solid metric, which is money that you're making.
All right, when I saw the product, and it came to me through somebody who had used it at a previous company who came into inside.com and saw we were using the Mahalo IRC server.
Yep.
Which I had set up because I'm an IRC fan, having used IRC my whole life, and then also This Week in Tech used IRC. This show used IRC for a long time, and I was like, we don't need that. We have an IRC server, and our IRC server is already set up on one of our existing servers, so we're kind of It's not costing us any money. IRC is free. Everybody knows how to use it. It's a little bit technical, but why would we pay for this?
Yep.
That was what I said. Why would we pay for this? Why would we pay for this? And I was sort of fighting against HipChat. And the person's like, well, it's just a lot cleaner, and it's got, the iPhone app and whatever. And it's one company making all the different flavors. And I was like, $2 a person per month. We have 15 people. We're going to send this company $400 a month. We don't need to. We're a startup. No effing way.
Yep.
And then, like a month after trying it, the person was like, just let's try it. A month after, I was like, I paid double for this. I mean, don't raise my prices, but it is the truth. How did you come to $2 a month, and how do you get through that objection of we can get this for free somewhere else? Which is how developers think, right?
Totally.
Like, they're just like, it costs money? I don't want it.
Well, that's we have that mentality too. Whenever we use anything, I could build that better myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the main thing is, that's not the actual job you were hired to do, was to set, or for most people, to set up the IRC server, right?
No.
And so even if you have 20 people, you're paying $40 a month, that's like 1 hour of engineering time.
Yeah.
That's how much you would be, less than that, what you'd be paying that engineer,
Yeah.
right? So it's already not even close to worth it, but the engineering mind says, I'm going to build this myself. I know I can. I use IRC, and then it turns out half the company can't use it because it's too technical, and you can't share files and all this other
Nicknames
stuff.
and
nicknames and
ports.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody wants to deal with that. How'd you come to $2 a month? Is that the breaking point for people? And what do you do when a company gets to like 300 people or 200 people? What's the biggest installation you have? Do you do group pricing?
So it's funny. We started off doing like a bunch of plans, tiers, different storage amounts, kind of like following the 37 signals. Those guys pioneered that sort of model.
4 different versions in boxes with the features.
But they're really just trying to push you into one. Like there's one that everyone
This is
signs
the
up
ideal
for.
one. That's why it's highlighted.
Right. And so basically we got to the point where we're like, well, this is really complicated. It's like, oh, you're on premium. Well, that's not in plus. Like you hit the limit. And we're just like, this is stupid. Like we're just trying to, you shouldn't be thinking about these sorts of problems. And so we're like, what if we just charge per user, and all the all you can use storage, all of the SMS, just send as many as you want, because in the grand scheme of things, it's not that expensive. And then it'll perfectly scale with the size of organizations. So it's sort of the best. It ended up being sort of something that we did for our benefit, for simplicity, but it actually ended up being, I think, one of the best decisions we made.
And you don't have a sales department then?
No.
Or you do?
Atlassian, the company that acquired us last year, or I guess a year and a half ago now, they also don't have a traditional sales force, and they're huge as far as revenue. But yeah, we've never had any of that.
Just people sign up, and what's the largest install? Because we have right now, I think, about 50 people in there.
This is sort of when we knew we were onto something. Was the group chat was the main thing I thought people would use it for. But then we looked at the stats, and then 60% of the messages being sent were one-to-one. And so I'm like, oh, we're solving that entire because once you're right there in that app, you're not going to go back to Gtalk or whatever else. And so, but like I said before, we actually limited the size of companies that could sign up to under 100, because we didn't even want to deal with it. We didn't know the scaling, how it would work. And I think we got an email from, who's it, Expedia, I think, and they had 2,400 people on it.
2,400?
Yeah.
They're paying you $60,000 a year.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we didn't even know.
Oh, you weren't paying
it was
attention.
going. Yeah, no, I just didn't look at that. Money, we had there were thousands of paying customers at that point. So the money, all added up, but we didn't see that specific charge.
Right.
And we only knew because some guy emailed us a support question, and we show a link of how many people are in their group, and we're like, what? And then we went and checked that out, and that was going on. But we found it amazing because the app, even today, is still not designed for that level of use. But I think it's a testament to not only, I guess our initial design decisions were pretty good, but how poor other enterprise software stuff is.
Yeah.
Like I know the guys at Netflix email me, and they're like, we have Link running in the background, but no one uses it, and everyone switched to HipChat.
Right.
Which is pretty amazing, because that's Link, the unused product now probably costs 100x a month what HipChat does.
That is a big part of this enterprise revolution, is it not? The simplicity and ground up sort of adoption, as opposed to the IT department saying, this is the most feature-rich, stable, triple secure, passes every test, but it's too complicated for people to use.
Right.
I mean, this is kind of the whole revolution, is Dropbox or Box or Yammer. It's just something easy to use that you can get shit done with now.
Yep. And I think that's the main thing that we've actually been pretty fortunate with, is that our growth through all those teams has been good enough. Once it gets big enough at a single company, the IT guys will message us and be like, hey, we're cool with people using this, but we need these security things. And it's like, no problem, we actually have those rolling out next month. So we're actually to instead of doing a lot of work on security things that we weren't sure we'd actually ever need. As people needed it, we could build it, and that was the best way to get there in the first place. We didn't waste any time.
You're also on like every single platform. So when we get back, I want to talk about running this sort of multi-platform and then all this API stuff, because I know my developers are pushing stuff from, I don't know if it's Celery or from Pivotal Tracker into it, but they're just sort of like, we got tons of hooks into it at inside.com. So we'll talk a little bit about that when we get back from this very important partner message.
Yes. Scott Walker, thank you for being a great attorney. I know this because one of the hackathon folks was having a lot of problems, a lot of challenges with the intellectual property of their project. And you know what? Scott got on the phone, and he spent a lot of time with these entrepreneurs and gave them great advice. The advice I would have given them, in fact. But coming from an attorney, even more important, the Walker Corporate Law Group, for those of you who have not been listening to this program, This Week in Startups, is a boutique law firm that specializes in serving entrepreneurs and founders. They have 10 to 20 years of experience in their field, each of the attorneys there, and they love working with startups. And there's no junior associates getting on the job trading. No, you're getting the best of the best, and they do fixed fees. So when you want to raise money or you're doing your terms of service or a merger and acquisition, Scott understands. You're scared, you're panicked, you're like, oh my God, how much is this going to cost? That's like the number one question attorneys get, after like what the problem is. Like, how do I solve this problem? And then how much is it going to cost? You know what? Scott knows that. And that's why he's on a mission to help startups. He's a really great guy. I mean, he could be making a lot more money, I'm certain, working at some big firm, but instead, he has a mission himself to help these startup companies. And boy, do the startups who work with him love him. I know that because they tell me. You can just email Scott at Walker Corporate Law. Scott at Walker Corporate Law. Talk to the boss, and he will help you with whatever you're trying to get done for your startup. 415-979-9998. That's right, 415 San Francisco, 979-9998. 979-9998, walkercorporatelaw.com. And you can follow Scott at Scott Ed Walker. And you know what? He'll always pick up the phone. He'll always talk to an entrepreneur. He'll always give you an answer to the question. He'll make time for you. And he's carved out this great life for himself and his team to help startups, which is the same life you and I and Gina and Brandis and Demont, everybody who works on the program, everybody who works on launch, believes in helping startups. And Scott is part of our family, and he's been supporting the program for years now. And he's a good friend of mine. So go ahead and give him a call, 415-979-9998. And let's get back to the program.
Hey, thanks to our partner for supporting the program. Couldn't do it without you. So you go by Pete or Peter?
Pete.
Just Pete.
Parents call me Peter.
They call you Peter, but everybody calls you Pete.
Yep.
Where are you from?
Maine.
You're from Maine.
Yep.
And then you went to Albany.
Yep.
And then you came to the Valley.
That's right.
Wow, living the dream.
Yeah.
Huh? So let's talk about multi-platform. The number of platforms this is available on is pretty amazing. I mean, that was one of the things that drew us to it was, hey, there's a Mac OS client, which a lot of our writers on inside.com liked, and the developers, some of them are Linux, I guess is a Linux version or something. I don't know, maybe it's anyway. And then for me, the iOS app, being a CEO on the go, as it were, I find myself constantly, this is my behavior pattern. I see something in the new inside.com app coming out January 24th. There's a little plug for me in there. And I take a screenshot. And then there's this great feature when I go into HipChat, when I can post an image, and it immediately has a choice. Last image taken.
Yep.
So I know it's that, not the selfie I took or whatever. And I click it, it confirms, and then I put it in there. And then I just put a message with it. Hey, what's going on with this? There's a bug here or something. Incredibly powerful. But and it seems like Evernote's pursuing that beyond every platform. Weren't things supposed to get easier for developers and there'd be one platform called the internet? I mean, how do you look at this now as an entrepreneur and somebody who's been on the internet since the beginning that like you have to support, I think you support like 8 platforms now? It feels like 7?
6?
Maybe?
Know. Yeah. Well,
web and mobile web are two different things or the same?
Yeah, we got with the web app, iOS, and sort of iPad, you have to make 2 specific
right, that's what I'm saying. And also
decisions.
web is kind of like web/mobile web because it works slightly differently.
That's true.
So
and then
those
Windows,
are like 1.5
OS X,
each.
Linux.
Android you have or not?
Android, yep.
Linux, that's 5. It's like, 1.5, 6, 7.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yep.
So how do you do that? You have like a team on each one, and they all like try to go to a standard one product manager who tries to make all these things operate seamlessly?
I can tell you, so that's actually one of the best worst decisions we made starting out was I think we believe just about everything should be a web app.
Right.
Like 99% of things. And there are like a handful of them that you need to have a desktop app, and one of them is chat. Like the dragging files into it, I guess you can do that on the web now. You couldn't back then when we started. And then the notifications popping up and all of this stuff.
Which now Chrome finally has.
So it's like, but things that didn't exist 4 years ago when we started on it. So that was sort of one of the big bets we made. And we started with Adobe Air, which, which gets a lot of hate, but
it was pretty innovative.
For three people to make an app that runs on Mac, Windows, and Linux pretty well, getting like 90% of the experience right. You had to install Air and update it and all that stuff, but we wouldn't be here without that. So it's like it gets a lot of hate, but it was actually really good for us.
Is anybody using it anymore?
I think, basically they stopped supporting Linux, and so we're like, that's sort of the beginning of the end. I think they started using it more on Android for games and stuff, the direction that they were taking it in, which was fine because web and HTML5 and all that stuff started getting a lot better.
Do you think we're going to get back to like, hey, the HTML5 stuff and the responsive web, you won't be able to tell the difference between, because I know when I'm using your app, if I'm on the website, and sometimes I am in Chrome on the web, I forget I'm on the web. And the same thing with YouTube and Twitter now. I don't know if you've had this experience, but their mobile web is so close to the app and so responsive that you're starting to like forget you're in there.
Yeah, that's. I pray that that's going to be the way that it is in the future, because it is right now. We have 4 different code bases doing all of our stuff. So we're doing the hard work for the way we think is the right way to do it. And so, it doesn't help that, Windows 8 now looks completely different. It's weird in tiles. And so I'm having to figure out, and none of us use Windows. So it's kind of hard to.
Like, what is that platform?
Yeah, so it's like.
It's beautiful and elegant.
Yeah, trying to figure out what those people actually want.
What is the metaphor? Yeah.
Because the majority of our customers are on Windows, around 60%.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. So you could either go with the tile format and like the Windows people will love
the big, beautiful Skype.
Yeah.
That's one of the big demos they give, and it looks,
gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Evernote is having that issue, and the way they handled it was, Phil, who was on the program, said he just lets each group pursue their version of it. So they're actually not even super standard. There's like a core base of functionality, but then he's like, follow your muse and, leverage the platform for something unique.
That's interesting. I think we try to keep it pretty standard across all of the apps, especially for help and support and documentation and screenshots and all that stuff. Having it be totally different would be the
Evernote on Windows 8 was completely different. Foursquare, the same thing. They're like really trying to do something new in there. Do you think most of those Windows users are just going to revert back to using the Windows metaphor and just like not use the tile? Because you can't switch.
So for our testing our Windows app, I got a laptop and it has Windows 8 on it.
Acer?
No, it's a ThinkPad.
Oh, yeah.
So still
touchscreen or no touchscreen?
Nope, no touchscreen.
Yeah, the Acer thin touchscreen is amazing.
Well, I'm sort of living in the dark ages of Windows 8 without some sitting there clicking the tile. Honestly, I have no idea how to use Windows 8 at all. It took me because there was no search box on the top of the thing that's like type to find what you're looking for. I have no idea or using the Windows key, which you never do in Windows.
It's like I feel like they leapfrogged the Mac OS and came up with this great new metaphor.
Yeah.
Which maybe was a mistake because everybody loved that old one so much.
I think they needed something in between. Yeah. Apple, they're still sort of going in that direction with the Launchpad. Is it called? Like that thing on they don't really bring a lot of attention to it. You can tell they're sort of playing around with it. I think Windows could have used a year or two of that opting into it if you wanted instead of switching everyone over to it.
Yeah, the Mac OS keeps adding these like little things you can get to, like the what do they call that thing where it shows you everything you've got?
Oh, the mosaic?
Something like that, which makes everything small and you can flip between them. I'm like, who uses that? And like,
it's not
one out of every
20
designers you find, like they're using it like so proficiently. And I'm like, can you explain to me why you use that? It's like, doesn't really make sense. I zoom out and then I see everything. It looks like you're watching like a sci-fi movie, Minority Report, but it doesn't seem like it's actually fast.
Well, it looks cool.
So you wind up getting this thing to scale. Did you ever take money for the company or just bootstrapped it?
So we actually, we were planning on just bootstrapping it because we were making enough with the way we calculated that we wouldn't have to raise. 2 of our friends are the founders of Meebo, Elaine and Sandy. And they won this, who's the VC firm?
Sequoia?
Founders Fund.
Oh, Founders Fund.
Founders Fund, they had this program started by Sean Parker.
Right.
To, where they gave, there's like the Tech Fellows program, and
Yep.
they gave each founder $25K to invest on their own behalf, and they could match, and then Founders Fund would have the option of matching it if they wanted. And so they each gave us theirs. So I think we got 100 out of it
Oh, wow.
total. But we didn't have to raise anything, and the terms were good. It was just you take it as debt, and then
Convert at
it was
some point.
easy.
So that was the only raise.
Yeah.
And then you wound up selling the company, and you were at how many users did you guys have when you sold?
At the time, that's a really good question.
Tens of thousands?
Yeah, definitely tens of thousands. It was basically, we got to the point where it was either, we were no longer skiing or doing any of the things we actually like to do in life because the service can't go down a real-time
Yeah, no,
platform.
that would be very bad.
And so we were basically trying to balance that life balance thing with, do you want to raise money? And enterprise, it takes 10 years is the general rule to get to,
Yeah.
that really big size. Or have we done the max that 3 people can do, and now's a good time to hand it off and join someone that can take the product, or help us take the product to where we want to go.
How did
And that's
you
what we
wind
found.
up selling? And who's this company you sold to?
So Atlassian.
Atlassian.
They make Jira and Confluence and all, used by tons of companies,
Right.
issue tracking. And they're primarily Australian, and they had an office here in San Francisco. And I actually wasn't that familiar with the company. Garrett and Chris were, especially on the issue tracking side of things. But when we started talking to them, we had met with other companies, I won't say any names, but in the enterprise world, it's most likely that your product's gonna die once it goes somewhere and gets
Right.
renamed, and your soul that you put into it gets
You become
sucked out and ruined.
Salesforce Chat or something, right? You go from HipChat to Salesforce Chat.
Yep. And so we went to a lot of those companies. It's like, this is not the place where I want this product to go. And so talking to Atlassian, and the 2 founders were over here from Sydney, and they had built Atlassian the exact way I would have liked to imagine that we would have built HipChat had we kept it going. And they had raised almost no money. They took some money from Excel, but this was after they were already making tens of millions a year in revenue.
Right.
It was more to help them establish stuff here in the United States. But everything the company believes in and values, and they don't have a traditional sales team either,
Yeah.
and the products speak for themselves. And they were basically like, come join us. We'll give you all the resources you need, and you can build a team. So I think within a year we were from 4 people up to 20, and
Wow.
and so and this year we have really aggressive plans too. So it's been awesome, actually, especially knowing a lot of other people in the industry. It's quite a good
How did you
story.
wind up hooking up with them? And just you guys use their product? And
So
then
we have a lot of
made friends?
we have all those integrations that come into HipChat, and they
yeah.
just wanted to have us come over and talk shop about hooking them up. And then we started just sort of seeing other places our products could work together. And I think they realized that the space was also
That is how it
bigger than
happens
expected.
often for entrepreneurs listening. Like you wind up doing business development or just catch-up meetings, and all of a sudden great things happen. So I actually set those up when I do my companies. I do a listening tour where I tell people I'm doing a listening tour. I'm just going to be in New York for a week, just showing people what I'm doing and catching up and getting their advice on where we're going.
I think that's right. And I think the other...
Then everybody's like, take our money.
Right.
Let us buy your company.
Well, it was funny. Just a funny little story back to what we were talking about, the chat, doing chat in general. We actually, a bunch of the associates at VC firms, they would really dig the product, bring us in, and we'd be in a meeting with one of the partners. And this was actually sort of, sad for us, but they totally didn't get it.
Yeah,
They were
because they
like-
don't do work.
Well, it's
They're VCs. All they do is go golfing and Hawaii,
Well, it was basic-
and Aspen,
we heard it multiple times.
TED,
It wasn't just one place.
Davos.
But it was...
They don't work, dude. You know these guys.
I don't know. I wouldn't want their job. If I had to have coffee 20 times a day with a bunch of people
They
pitching me
don't.
ideas,
That's
I don't
the-
think I
they don't
could do it.
They don't do it.
Oh.
I think most
I don't like the
VCs
idea of that then.
go to 10 meetings a week.
Okay.
That's my estimate. And then they send their associates to do all that stuff.
So we'd go in and talk to these guys, and if I wanted to talk to someone, why wouldn't I call them on the phone?
Yeah.
And I'm like, if I could avoid a phone call at all costs, I absolutely would.
Right.
And so it's just a different mindset of how,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's being part of a younger generation, being texting and IM and all this stuff. I never call my friends on the phone to see how they're doing.
Yeah, it just feels like you're imposing on somebody to call them
Right.
on the phone today. It's like a cultural change
Right.
that instant messaging probably had, or even texting, right? Why are you calling me exactly? People feel you. I find it's a little creepy sometimes.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who would call me, Sean Gold, who's laughing. We've worked together on 2 projects. And he'd say, hey, I'm just calling. It's a relation. I said, why are you calling me? I said, what's a relationship maintenance call?
Oh, it's
I
like-
said, what does that mean?
I'd be
He
like,
said,
"Are you-
I just calling because we're friends and we just want to see how you're doing.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, why didn't you and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not acting like a human being anymore. I was like saying to him like, well, why don't you email me your questions? He's like, I don't have any questions. I just called to say hi. And I was like, oh, that's why we use the phone.
At this point, if anyone calls me, I assume their car broke down or they need a ride to the airport.
What's wrong?
So, yeah, basically, it's like, are you okay?
Are you okay? What's wrong?
Yeah.
But chat, wildly efficient. How do you deal with, there's a behavior, I think things become a little loosey-goosey in chat.
Mm-hmm.
How do organizations put chat into organizations without people turning it into like a little bit too loose? Like I've had people in the chat room like post a picture of something that they think is funny, but that if was a tweet by somebody who's a senior executive at X company would result into a what's her name landing kind of situation.
Totally. And so, we built it as, because the mindset you're in when you're chatting, you're not thinking about company policy. Like when you send an email, anyone will be able to find that in the IT department or something. Mm-hmm. Chat's not the same way. And so we actually built it with we built it from the point of view of the user, because that's what, not from the CTO's point of, like, I give a crap what, whatever. I do now because it's security and stuff. But, as far as reading, I don't want a boss to be able to read through people's one-to-one chat history or see what these people are saying.
So
about
one-to-one
them.
is not viewable?
Not currently.
Yeah.
Actually, I think we're going to have to add some of that stuff just for legal purposes in general.
For finance, right?
Yeah, they need to have the disclosure and get all of that stuff.
So then
but
you
when
just have it when you do. You just put an alert up that says, note,
that's the
one-to-one
thing.
chats are recorded.
We're going to be
at
very
this
careful
company.
when we roll it out, where we're going to let everyone know, like, in a month, this will be turned on for your group. But it'll only be all the chats from that day forward, nothing in the past, and make that very clear that that's the way it's going to work.
Yeah, I think that people have this, hopefully the NSA stuff has opened people's eyes that like anything you type at your computer, especially at work, if the NSA can tap what's happening in between Google servers, like your boss on the router records everything in and out of your company.
In fact, I just assumed that, it's funny, the backlash over the NSA stuff, I just assumed everything I did could be tracked anyway. I'm just not very interesting, so I didn't really care about it.
Yeah, there is that. It's like
I just assumed though that any of that
now
was
I'm using a VPN. I have like a VPN, and so I like even when I'm at work or cafes or something like that, I'm just concerned about getting hacked.
Yeah.
And then my big fear is somebody will hack my account, and my life is incredibly boring as well. Something we share in common, Pete. Two very boring individuals working in the technology space. But I'm just scared somebody is going to tweet to 190,000 people, Goatsy or Lemon Party or some craziness, and I'm going to be like, oh my God, like that wasn't me.
Oh, I thought you were going to be like, they're getting all these retweets and I'm not getting credit for it.
Or, yeah, exactly. No, I'm really afraid that like somebody's going to do that, and then I'm going to say like, that wasn't me. And then everybody's going to go say, yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
That was you. You were drunk and you did that, right? Like,
right.
Well, yeah, all the celebrities who get hacked and they're like, I really didn't say that about Britney Spears.
Right.
It wasn't me. So you sold the company a year and a half ago. You have that postpartum like, oh my God, I sold my company, I'm depressed kind of thing. You're going through an existential crisis now. You never have to work again or what?
That's a good question. Actually, our goal has always been, I just really want to work on cool stuff with with my friends, and that's basically what we did in college. And luckily, we've been super fortunate that those have taken us to good places, and then they've been financially lucrative as well, where I can do this for a living. But being at Atlassian, there's so much stuff we still want to do with video, and I think my goal is when I leave Atlassian, I don't want to have to rebuild this product again.
Right.
And it's like I want this. I want this to be the. I'm not worried about Atlassian effing it up, but I'd like to. That's just in general. I think that's an entrepreneur's concern.
So you think
once
putting video in here, like making it more Google Groups like?
I think one of the last things we hear from a lot of people is like I'm running 4 things still. I either Google Talk for my family or whoever. I have Skype. I know a lot of people with interviews and they record it and it can do all this stuff.
I'm GoToMeeting me myself. But
GoToMeeting. I think that there's, because we're the thing already running all day, I think there's a huge opportunity there for us to not kill those things, but, just make it slightly better for the people.
You could have
that
like
are
a light version of screen sharing. So like if I'm in it, I could just click and share my screen.
Right.
And it's the people in the chat room.
Right.
That'd
and
be
it's
juicy.
And it's one of those things where even if it's not, as good like WebEx, these guys have done years of work trying to perfect this, right? But it's like I think doing it pretty well will be amazing.
If you're not doing like a presentation to 25 people, but if you just
or
wanted
webinar or any of that
webinar,
kind of thing.
but if you just had people's if people could turn their webcam on, because I got pitched on a startup. It was a really interesting idea. It was for developers.
Yep.
And they left their webcams on all day.
Was it a squiggle?
It was Squiggle.
Yeah, it's cool.
And I was like, this is really cool. And I talked to my developers about it, and I was like, it's kind of a niche thing, and so I didn't invest, but I was like, I really want to stay in touch with you guys because my developers wouldn't do it, but they do a scrum where they do what you do, but they don't want to leave their cameras on all day. I think my developers are 30 years old, and you're working with 17 and 18-year-old developers. And so it's just a generational thing. Keep at it.
Yeah, no, I think it's an awesome idea. It's one of those things where even if you're inside of a large organization, if you're one really tight team, it's a really cool thing. And they've done it. Their product IQ is really high, and they've done a really good job executing it. So it's really cool. I hope they do well. It's a cool idea.
What impact have Google Hangouts made, you think? Like it seems like a pretty cool product. I don't get invited to any Hangouts, but I do see people use them.
I think that's the main problem is that all it did is go and ruin. It set the bar really high of what's expected in that kind of experience, and it makes it seem really easy, and it's not. And that's sort of like one of the big, just like YouTube makes HD video streaming seem really easy that you can upload a video. But if you were to sit down and do that yourself, it's really, really difficult. But it's also the kind of video's the kind of thing. If it's not perfect, you're not going to use it.
Right.
And so that's like there's a lot of difficult problems there that hopefully.
What do you think of Google's sort of massive progress in enterprise and just in general? I mean, you've been here working in the industry for a while now, probably a decade.
Yep. The Google in the enterprise. I don't know how.
Or just Google overall. I mean, just 10 years ago it was a search engine, and then they added Gmail, and it was like, wow, they're doing two things. And now it's like, we bought 6 robotic companies and Nest.
I think
this month.
I think it's cool. I like the idea of, they stumbled upon probably the best business model of all time, which is I'm looking for info on a camera. There are 50 dudes that want to sell me cameras.
Yeah.
Like you can't beat that.
Yeah.
Even as far,
intent,
even in Facebook, the intent is I'm happy to see those ads of this guy that wants to sell me a cheap
Not an
camera.
ad. Yep.
Yeah, it's like I'm really happy to have that. And I like the idea that, they've got fortunate enough to do that, but then they're just doing all this other awesome stuff because they can and not, just piling the money up or hoarding. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
I would like to think that I would do the same thing, but I'm glad they're doing it.
And what do you think, Apple? You see Apple like not doing that, and are you a big Apple fan, or you're a Windows guy?
I used to be strictly Windows. I like to think that I would just use whatever the best thing is at the time.
Right.
And I think Android's sort of getting there. It's still a little, the problem with the polish on the iPhone is so good. Like the scrolling and everything, it's like it's still not there on Android, but if your entire life's in Google, which mine is, that might be enough to sway me for the next version. But I have to say that in the 5S, the slow-mo video is killer. It is so awesome. I wish I had had that as a kid growing up, jumping off snowbanks and all this stuff. No. Nope.
Taking video of your daughter on a swing
with
that awesome slow-mo camera is like, Apple's still a pretty awesome company to include that.
Yeah.
Well, listen, this has been a great discussion. It's a great product, everybody. Honestly, you guys know I only tell you about really cool stuff that I use, and HipChat is like, I'm really running an entire organization on it. I cannot tell you, how impressed I am with it. Just elegantly simple, and everybody uses it constantly. Like, even during the show, I'm getting people don't see it, but on my courtesy monitor here in the studio, it's like, oh, you're 8 minutes in, you're 10 minutes in, ad break now, 40 minutes. It's like, and I have the whole history now of the show in the last 6 months and our discussions about it. It's a really powerful product. Everybody go try it. And you can follow Pete. He's Pete Curley. And he does have curly hair, ironically. That worked out pretty well for you. You didn't change your name to Curly.
No, I didn't. No.
Just happenstance.
That's the way it is.
Really, luck of the draw. Pete Curly. Well, maybe you got the name Curly because you came from a line of people with curly hair. Is that possible?
I don't know. I have a lot of bald.
A lot of bald as well? Pete Baldy?
Well, I guess that could come from that side too, right?
It could, actually, yeah. Hey, listen, Pete Curly, great job on the program. And Atlassian?
Atlassian. Yeah.
Atlassian. That's a company to look out for, too. I got to check those guys out. Atlassian. ATL.
It's the products everyone uses, but probably doesn't know the.
Yeah. And they're from Sydney?
Yeah.
Yeah, Sydney's fun. You get to go down there now every year?
I haven't gone down yet.
What?
Dude, I don't know. The 14-hour flight's mentally.
Dude, tell them to buy you a first class. They bought your company. They buy you this. Let me tell you, I got speaking gigs.
Yep.
They put me up on New Zealand Air. Speaking fee, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, don't worry about the speaking fee. Just give me 2 first-class tickets.
Yep.
So my wife and I went down to Sydney, first class on Air New Zealand. Oh, my God. It's like they give you a bed.
That sounds
And
awesome.
Sydney is a fantastic town. Sydney's like if they took San Francisco and Santa Monica, or New York and Santa Monica. If New York and Santa Monica had a love child, if Maui and New York had a love child, it would be Sydney. That's it. Maui and New York. It's like
Maybe they'll change their slogan to that.
It's like everybody's so nice and everybody's so rich and affluent and the quality of life is absurd. You know, they have all this, they've mined like.
Right, yeah, half the country is mines.
It's mine.
Yeah.
So they're just like, oh, I'm sorry, China's growing.
Yeah.
And they just have a tax surplus. The minimum wage, somebody told me the minimum wage was like $15 there. So like the poorest person in the country is doing, on average, 2 or 3 times better than the poorest American. Like
Right.
the quality, nobody's poor in the country. Everybody is doing fantastic. It's a really, I can't believe you've ever gone.
Well, I'm going.
You have to go
sometime
now.
in the next few months, yeah.
Just go, trust me. And as long as they get you like a business class, first class ticket, get a couple movies.
Yeah.
Go on the Pirate Bay, get some screeners. You'll be fine. All right, listen, I'm not endorsing anybody go steal screeners off the Pirate Bay, but I am endorsing you go try HipChat. All right, thanks to our sponsors. Thanks to Brandis. Thanks to, who else do I thank? Oh, Demont for keeping the lights on and the sponsors, all that kind of great stuff. And producer Gina. We'll see you next time on This Week in Startups. Bye-bye.